Hello, everyone. Welcome to day two of the Bright Star Intuitive Painting series. Today, we're going to dive deeper into painting and start to mark out some of the darker areas while preserving those really unique watercolor marks that formed naturally as the paint dried. I wanted to keep those shapes because you can never really recreate them exactly the same way twice, and that's part of what makes intuitive painting so interesting to me. So I'm going to go around the edges of each watermark with a very thin black line of just marked black acrylic paint, trying to preserve the natural shapes that the water created. There's something really beautiful about the way watercolor dries and leaves behind those edges and texture. So if you remember from the previous video in the Bright Stars Intuitive series, um, I originally started this out as a bright star, but already only two videos in, I'm completely chasing this tiny little shape instead. And that is part of the intuitive painting process, letting the paint shift and evolve. As I am painting through this canvas, I was thinking a little bit about the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, which I am just starting to read this year. I know it's an older book. But she talks about how people approach a single-minded passion in her book, and I actually don't do that. I don't plan every step. I'm in the experimental phase of painting, so I'm playing around, and honestly, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, and that's what makes this fun for me. And so maybe the single-minded passion that I use to approach creative achievement is more focusing on the fun side of things. For the next part of the video, I'm going to focus on the ultramarine blue background, and I don't know about you guys, but I find it really satisfying to remove the built up acrylic paint from the tube. So I'm going to mix that acrylic blue with a little bit of black, and I'm going to darken up and just essentially highlight every single part in the canvas where I see those dark blue pieces show up. Next, I'm using the phthalo blue, which is that cooler shade of blue, and on the watercolor canvas, it's marked with the green watercolor paint where I wanted to put that, and I'm trying to match it to the little angel star, so as close as I can to get that light blue. I'm using my old paint swatches as kind of a guide for what shade of blue and how I'm going to mix that color to get as close to that blue star as I can. As I start to mix the phthalo, it's still a little bit more blue rather than teal, and so I just want to see if adding a little bit of yellow will get it into the or close to that teal color that I'm looking for, but it ends up a little bit too bright green, and so I'm just going to stick with that pale blue. Now, as I apply this very light phthalo blue onto the canvas, I'm using that very cheap craft brush with the, plasticky bristles and added quite a bit of water to the paint so that it just kind of flows onto the canvas and starts to blend and create shapes and the idea of shapes. I add just a little dollop of that light sable blue in with some white to create even more areas that are just even lighter blue. So really trying to show contrast in this painting with really dark areas, really light areas of different shades, in this case, different tints of the same hue of blue. One of the nice things about using really watered down acrylic paint in this manner is that I can go back in with a dry brush and start to blend the colors together, and they can start to create either shapes or ideas of shapes within that blending. And this might be the permanent color scheme, or it might just spur on an idea for a different color scheme. Similar to how I added some white to the phthalo and I made two different tints of phthalo. I'm going to make I've already done a tone of blue, so I'm mixing blue with the ultramarine or the ultramarine blue with black. Now I'm going to just do white with ultramarine blue and create a little bit of contrast with those warmer tones of blue. One thing that I notice as I'm putting all of these phthalo blues, which are the cool blues, and ultramarine blues, which are the warm blues, it's still really blue. So I want to add something that will warm it up a little bit, not too much. This is supposed to be representative of kind of a bright start in night. And so I'm going to add magenta with just a hint of ultramarine blue and white, and just add a little bit of warmth to this. For the middle, I wanted kind of a neutral brownish color, and I had that green on my canvas, so I am going to add just a little tiny speck of red and a tiny speck of that green to the white, and the combination of green and red should make us a nice muddy brown color. You can't really see it on the video, but that light sable blue right next to that muddy brown looks just kind of off. And so I went back into that kind of light ultramarine blue and just mixed that to get that color to look a little bit more, um, just so it looks a little better together. And it's interesting because that's the only part, all of that kind of brownish color touches phthalo blue, but that was the only part that really stuck out as not really matching, I guess. So that's the end of today's session. The painting definitely looks chaotic, but I am loving where it is headed. The next time I will outline those dark black lines and configure the center of the painting. Kind of was looking like a bird to me. I'm not sure. Um, and also browns are out of my comfort zone, so I might clean that up a little bit. As far as the paints that I ended up using, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, a tiny bit of cadmium red, a tiny bit of cadmium yellow, and some black and white. So if you enjoy watercolor, using watercolor to start intuitive paintings, or color mixing experiments, or just watching another beginner artist figure things out in real time, please make sure that you follow the Bright Star Intuitive Painting series and like and subscribe the videos. Thank you so much.